Hour, and so we are going to call the regular session of the Board of Supervisors into session. Please take the roll.
Supervisor Starkey? Here. Supervisor Howard?
Yep.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Here.
Chair Wilson?
Here. Will we please take a moment of reflection? And if we can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the time that we take an opportunity to introduce any new employees. Any new employees to be recognized today?
Yes, Chair. We have some folks here from Department of Health and Human Services.
Good morning, Board. I
Good
have
morning.
a few employees to introduce. First off, I'd like to introduce Michaela Fonts. Michaela is a medical records clerk in our behavioral health branch, and she's going to say a few words.
Hi, I'm Michaela Fonts. I'm so sorry. This is
You can pull
really-
that out.
Hi, I am the medical records clerk. I've been here for a couple of months, and I can't wait to serve the community.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
All right, and next I'd like to introduce Heidi Casper. Heidi is an Office Assistant 3 in our Social Services branch. She has previous experience as a drama teacher for schools, volunteer work with homeless encampment cleanup, and we're really excited to have her join our team.
Thank
And
you.
then, now I'm going to invite Public Health Nutrition Manager Alyssa Ullman Kirkpatrick, and she's going to introduce a new employee for that branch.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alyssa, and I'm the Public Health Nutrition Manager, and I have a new employee, Hannah Rivers. She is the new office technician for the WIC program, and she has lived in Del Norte County for over 16 years, and she has already showed that she's going to help us tremendously because our caseload is growing, and she's catching on fast.
My name is Hannah Rivers, and I'm very excited for the opportunity that I have working for the WIC office.
Thank you.
Nice to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, we also have our Emergency Services Manager who'd like to introduce our Emergency Services Coordinator.
Hi, Board. I'm very pleased to announce that we've hired a coordinator at the OES. I don't even quite know how to do this because we've never hired somebody before. This is Jessica Seaman. She comes to us from the Public Health Department, and she will be doing a lot of our outreach and managing the volunteer teams and duties such as that. So we're glad to have her.
This is a blast from the past.
Yes, it is.
And I'm very pleased. Having worked with you, known you for a lot of years in your employment with the Sheriff's Office, and this is going to be a great fit. And I have a lot of confidence in you going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you so
I look
much.
forward to working with all of you.
Thank you.
That's all?
That is it?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
County Council, anything to report out of closed session?
No, nothing.
Thank you. And then I request any deletions, corrections, additions to the board of members in the agenda at this time. In order to add an item to the agenda, the item has to come before the attention of the county subsequent to the posting of the agenda, and the matter requires action at the regular next meeting of the Board of Supervisors. I do have to report that item number 4 on the consent agenda has been pulled as it was a little bit too soon for it to come to the attention of the board, and it will be reappearing, I assume, later at some subsequent meeting, but it will be pulled as part of the consent agenda today. Anything to any requests? Having none? Anything for the good of the order? Receive brief announcements from the relative to the County of Del Norte programs and projects by the individual board members, and we'll again start with Valerie.
Thank you, Chair Wilson.
So very, very busy couple of weeks, but I love it when I'm busy, so always keep those things coming. I attended the JJCC meeting at the new Youth Opportunity Center, and we had a lot of discussion around juvenile domestic violence and sex crimes. A lot of juvenile graffiti offenses have been popping up, and so we had some discussions around them and the best way to go about handling them. I did offer to help clean up the graffiti because, again, it's something that I really do like to do. And but they're in the works of trying to figure out the best response for those graffiti cases when they come up. And we also talked about the annual JJC Prevention Act and their block grant plan. So that'll be coming up soon, and then the whole board will get an opportunity to review that and approve that. I attended the Leadin Award ceremony, and I'm going to tell you, I was like this proud mom. I could not get enough. I was jumping up. I was running down the middle of the aisle so that I could get a picture when the sheriff was there providing awards to several correctional officers and a dispatcher. But he recognized the incident command team for their work on the Smith River Complex fire. Well-earned award and recognition. I couldn't have been prouder. And Search and Rescue Team 4 was also recognized, and again, I just couldn't get enough of that. I was beaming with pride for the county workers and the recognition that you received. I hosted a domestic violence luncheon for community agencies that are associated with intimate partner violence. We had 28 people representing 15 different agencies, and we came together to discuss current issues related to DV and the reasons why we are number one in the state relative to calls for service. It's not a number we want to be number one in. And we brainstormed ideas that we could reduce the violence by assisting the victims with their services, but also providing the appropriate treatment and services for the offenders who are committing those crimes. Supervisor Short attended with me, and we took copious notes on the suggestions that were made, and both of us will be following up on those soon and seeing if we can't enact some change coming up. I took the inaugural advanced air flight from Crescent City to Oakland and back. Yes, I spent a Sunday doing that. It was quite fun. The Chamber of Commerce Board was invited to participate in this round trip inaugural flight. Some of us went to Oakland and some of us went to Hawthorne, and I'm pleased to report that it was very similar to the Contour flight. So we're not going to see much of a difference with regard to the speed and the efficiency of that flight. We're hoping, because advanced air is more local, that if there is going to be a delay because of some mechanic problem, they'll have another plane here quickly. So I'm hoping that that will be the biggest difference between the two. I attended the Behavioral Health Collaborative meeting, and a lot of care court updates came out of that meeting. There are two cohorts in the implementation process, and Del Norte County is in cohort 2. So we are starting to ramp up, we're starting to roll out, and the next steps are going to be to get representatives from our DA's office, our county council, behavioral health branch, and all come together to see how we're going to implement this state mandated program within our community. And DHHS is doing a fine job making sure they stay on top of that. I attended the Area 1 Agency on Aging Advisory Council meeting, and we heard from the caregiver support for those individuals who have elderly people that they're taking care of that you're not being paid for, but that you need respite care. There is an agency that will provide that for you. It's on my Facebook page, but if you also want to just reach out to me, I can get you the information for that. Everybody needs a break, and so this is an opportunity for people to get that break from this service. We did have some discussions around our next 4-year area plan, and I just want to bring it up that on Thursday from 12:30 to 1:45 at the Del Norte Senior Center, we are going to ask for people to come and provide input as to what services you'd like to see here for our elderly people in the future. As California's population shifts, we are going to have
many more people over 60 than we are for those younger people, and that's going to change how we do business and the services that are provided. On our radar is SB 1249. The existing law is that money that comes in is diverted to nonprofits like the Area 1 Agency on Aging. AB 1249 SB 1249 will give counties the option to be able to provide those services. And while that is something that might be beneficial, it's certainly not something this county has the capacity for at this time, to take on one more department and one more level of services. So we are looking at that. That's on our radar. If it's something that we need to bring back to this whole board, we will, but Area 1 is looking at that at this time. I participated in healthcare discussions with various agencies. So Redwood Focus Care is a current clinic that provides services to 500 people in this community, 100 of which are pain management patients. So this clinic is going to be shutting down in June because they can't find a supervising clinician or physician to oversee this. So I met with Sutter Coast, Open Door, the Healthcare District, and Redwood Focus Care in order to find ways in which we can't potentially, it's a Hail Mary at this point, but find some supervising physician that could come and take over the operations of that so that those 500 patients aren't displaced. In the event that they are, we have been working with Open Door and Sutter to make sure that they're absorbed into their patient base. But they really like the level of care that they're getting at Redwood Focused Care, so we're going to do everything that we can to keep that program. I'm working with Dr. Stutz, who's also reaching out to individuals that he may know that we might be able to save this operation. I attended the first 5 commission meeting. I was appointed to the Redwood Parks Conservancy Board, and I attended my first official meeting. And I'm really going to work on this next year to say no, right? But I was asked to participate in this board, and I'm actually really excited about it because the Redwood Parks Conservancy is an official nonprofit partner for the National Park Services, the California State Parks, and they're the ones who actually can go in there and do the fundraising in order to support programs within those parks. So I'm excited to be on their board, and I'm hoping to really grow the relationships with those national, state, and United Forest Service parks. And then finally, I attended the Crystal Ball, and I was a co-chair this year of the event, and that evening was magical. We were able to successfully, as a community, raise over $60,000 in the live and silent auction alone. We don't have all the totals. But it's a fundraiser for the court-appointed special advocates, and it really is important. This entire board showed up to support that, and I feel that that is a testament to our commitment to our youth in this community. So it was well attended, it was a beautiful event, and that is my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Howard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple quick things I did want to talk about here. Also, welcome Advanced Air. Appreciate Supervisor Starkey going down there and taking that inaugural flight. I'm glad it worked out well because I hope they're here for quite some period of time. They seem to be really good at what they do. Spent some time with Jill Drinkwater. She's our current representative with Pacific Power. There's a lot of concerns that are coming up that I wanted to make the board aware of today, and maybe some conversations with Jill would also be appropriate from our board members. But in particular, the suits that have arisen over the last couple of years of fires within our region that has impacted power lines and generated quite a bit of now payments out for some of those victims of those fires, especially fires that they were linked to. Those all correspond in rate increases. And obviously with the removal of the Klamath River dams, we had a series of rate increases that we've been stomaching now for quite some period of time. But this also presents a problem for us. A problem for us as it relates to potential risk in the future with shutoffs. We hear about it quite frequently in Southern California, in the Central Valley. where if there's a threat of high windstorms, power being shut off for long periods of time. They fully anticipate to be doing the same program here to avoid the litigation and potential effects of a fire-caused event, sparked event by their power lines. But there's got to be a better way to mitigate this, and I know us as a board have been paying attention to the redundancy issues that we have here, bringing in power again from Oregon, so if one leg gets cut off, particularly the leg from O'Brien into Crescent City, we could look elsewhere for that power to be delivered along the coast. So we hope to see a report out fairly soon from Pacific Power, who's working with the Bonneville Power Administration and Coos Curry Electric to deliver that feasibility study hopefully this coming month. But I wanted the board to be aware of that because we should be seeing some rumblings and after effects of that litigation. Also had a meeting just this morning for the California Fish and Game Commission. The commission is adopting the federal regulations for groundfish fisheries off our coastal waters here. At the PFMC meeting, which was just several weeks ago in Fresno that we attended as a county and represented some issues of concern as it related to the Quillback closure, the state of California now has to adopt the measures that were passed by the Pacific Marine Fisheries Council at that meeting 2 weeks ago. That just happened today. I was able to make public comment in support of those new regulations, and those motions did pass. And so we will see our marine fisheries, specifically from near shore to 20 meters, reopen for about a 6-month period, which is going to be quite effective in getting us out there and getting us back into that fishing, into those fishing stocks that we all cherish so much. Also attended the North Coast North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District meeting. Of particular concern in Humboldt County, which may or may not affect us in the future, is the cogeneration plant for biomass that Humboldt Redwoods has down in Rio Del. That area has been under a significant amount of controversy from environmental groups and others about potentially shutting that plant down. It represents a significant part of the electrical grid in Humboldt County, especially when there are power shutdowns. That's sometimes the only power that they have on board. And so we're working through that as an air board to hopefully see them through a process to be re-permitted in this renewal that they have, which is a 5-year renewal. Also wanted to let you know that Timber Boulevard on Highway 101 and Rowdy Creek Road at Highway 101 are now officially programmed by the California Department of Transportation, and I am really proud to say we stuck with this as a group, as a local transportation commission, to see these important safety projects happen on US Highway 101. We have so many near misses there. We've had deaths in the past, but now that they're programmed, I'm really happy to see these move forward here in the next couple of years and to get these important safety projects to happen. Senator McGuire flew in last night. He was with us today until 11 before heading to back to Humboldt County. Had a chance to visit with him last night where we discussed fisheries issues. We discussed concerns that the city had with with the potential measure for S that will be on the ballot in November. And in addition, Pebble Beach Drive, which is a huge concern, and how we move through some of the disaster declarations, which Cal OES, Nancy Ward in particular, will need to be involved with in order to get this through a process. So the city that doesn't have a lot of resources to fix a spot like that could have some state and federal dollars to fix it without having a huge impact to their budget. He's on it and was really engaged in the conversation, and I was super happy to see that. Also spoke to him a great deal on an issue that Supervisor Short is carrying a lot of the water on, which is a Senate bill, SB 951, which is being carried by Senator Wiener. I wanted to see what Senator McGuire's opinion on this was, making it out of committee. He said there has been some negotiations with the California Coastal Commission and others just recently last week that has resulted in potentially a path forward for that bill, which was also expanded for the entire state of California, not just San Francisco. Why this is important for us to pay attention to, in particular with consent agenda item, which is reflective of some of our housing issues in our general plan, the Coastal Commission, for a large part within the coastal zone, has the ability to restrict our ability to develop housing in our area and hold it up for quite some period of time. It should be no surprise to folks, it takes a long time to develop anything within the coastal zone, sometimes 2 years. And so hopefully some of the fixes that Senator Wiener has proposed in this legislation could also be realized here in Delaware County. And I'm glad to see some of those changes last week. And lastly, I'd encourage everyone here in the next 3 weeks, our Japanese delegation will be arriving on April 11th at 4 o'clock at the airport terminal. We hope to have as many folks out there as we can get for this reception. There will be 9 delegates coming to our area, including the new mayor of Rickenson-Takeda and the new chairman of Rickenson-Takeda. This is all part of their recognition of the importance of the Kamome Festival and Japan's mission to see no life lost during tsunami or other natural disaster events. And so I hope to see a large turnout for that reception, which will happen again at 4 o'clock on April 11th, and you should be hearing quite a few pieces on the radio coming up as we get closer to that date. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Short.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since our last meeting, I attended RCRC down in Sacramento. I wanted to touch on the SB 951 piece. Supervisor Howard eloquently told us about that. Initially, Senator Wiener focused this bill on the San Francisco area specifically. We talked to our lobbyist friends and asked the question, you know, would he be interested in expanding that for the entire state? And it was great to see that his bill was amended last week to include the entire state. So I'm working with Supervisor James Gore from Sonoma County, and hopefully we can get the rest of the coastal counties to support Senator Wiener in that bill and make some changes to our ability to develop in the coastal zone. As Supervisor Starkey said, I was invited and attended her intimate partner violence meeting that she proctored. Very interesting discussions. It was good to see people make connections and learn about people's roles in the community, and it was just great to see people say, "Oh, you do what? Hey, can I have your card?" You know, and it happened so many times during this simple lunch meeting. It made me feel hopeful that we can make some real progress in this very significant problem that we have in our county. Also attended the 4-H soup supper. Was very well attended. A great event. I really like the down-to-earth piece of it and the donations from the community with the soups. It was just a great evening. I attended a homeless ad hoc housing and services subcommittee meeting. I attended the advanced air kickoff event, although I didn't fly. I just attended the kickoff event. Attended a meeting of the Solid Waste Management Authority. I attended a meeting of Fish and Game Technical Advisory Committee where we had speakers from the Southwest Fisheries Science Center, part of NOAA, where they came and talked about how and why they collect samples of our ground fish and, you know, all things that go into making stock assessments. It was a very interesting meeting, really kind of low-key. It was very welcoming to fishermen and community members to come up and ask questions and have input. It was a good meeting to attend. I attended a Zoom meeting with CAO Lopez and Larry Karstead and his contractor Pam Mather out of North Coast EMS to talk about our next steps with moving forward with the county's ambulance provider RFP for consulting services. I met with Amy Jester from Wild Rivers Community Foundation, Humboldt Area Foundation, and Michelle Carrillo of Think Place. And we talked about issues in our county and what are good things and not so good things, and what we could possibly do, and what the foundation could possibly do to make things better. And finally, I attended the sold-out Crystal Ball. It was a great event. Just seeing so many people there and their support in this effort was really heartwarming. And it wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for the efforts of Supervisor Starkey, our own Barbara Lopez, Kelly Shalon, Kevin Hawkins, Tammy Wakefield, Leslie Duncan. Just a ton of people come together and put on this very, very cool event. And it really showed that that our community can come together and do good things for our children. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Borges? You're passing? Okay. For myself, I was on a short vacation, returned. We did solid waste. I attended behavioral health before I left, and also attended the NOAA meeting on the fishing issues, and that was a very good meeting. It brought forward many shortcomings in the data collection model that had been previously used in order to, but also their willingness to come to these areas that they don't normally visit and go out with the fishermen in order to get good data for which their models make the determination as to when they're opening or closing much of our recreational fishing. It looks to be that our efforts by both Supervisor Howard and by Supervisor Borges in putting out this message, and also with the city joining, getting involved and engaged in trying to keep, retain, and open back up the fishing that is so critical to both the commercial and recreational fishermen who bring a lot of dollars into our community and are a critical and have been a lifelong contributor to our economy here. And it's good for us to be able to champion their cause and bring that message forward, and trying to engage other counties into doing the same, because it is very important that our voices are heard at those levels in order to make change. I want to congratulate both Supervisor Short and Supervisor Starkey on their successful campaigns. It'll be a pleasure to see you and work with you for the next 4 years ongoing. And I also want to express my thanks to the voters and the opportunity. I feel truly blessed to be able to serve our community and to help to bring forward some of the issues that need to be brought forward. And again, I am very thankful not only to the voters but also to God for giving me the opportunity to be here and to do this. And I just want to express my thanks. At that, we're going to bring us to the timed item. It is 10:25 time. We're a couple of minutes late. This is an opportunity for comment period. Members of the public may address the board on matters that are within the jurisdiction of the board. If they are addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment on any issues off the agenda?
A little bit of old business this morning. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about a report by Health and Human Services where I gave Ms. Williams an opportunity to come up and pound on the lectern and pitch a fit. But what I would like to say is that pretty clearly, well, I feel that Health and Human Services is more about not saving vulnerable people, but creating vulnerable people. Ms. Williams said something that struck a chord with me, in that I think people in the county, or particularly the Board of Supervisors, should be aware of, is that when she said that salaries were not a particularly huge issue for the people that are not supervisors, directors, assistant directors, program managers, the regular people that work for the county, that there, in her view, apparently there's another issue that's greater than salaries. I know it's easy to point to salaries. We, after all, are rather meager in our compensation, but I had two members of my family that worked for the county. One worked for 25 years for Health and Human Services until she retired. The other worked for several years at the Sheriff's Department, resigned after that period of time. And what was interesting is in that community, which included a lot of other workers for the county, I never heard the excuse that the reason that they were employed was they didn't get paid enough. That wasn't an issue for them. They were more concerned about the quality of their workplace than they were about how much they got paid. It struck a chord, and so I did a little checking around to talk to some of these people that I know that we've been lobbied constantly about how we don't pay people enough, but the people that truly are invested in the county and do a majority of the work, pay is not the issue, it's their workplace that's the biggest issue, and almost universally that's the case. It's something that this county needs to be aware of, that when you're talking about retention and recruitment, people need to come to a place where they feel comfortable working and extending their career for the future, the 25 years that my wife put in, the experience she had to offer, and the trials of working in that environment for 25 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Any other public comment?
Hi, Robert Urico. I was appointed to the cannabis work group when we got the ordinance off the ground here. And as I was existing as Delmore patients together, so I knew we had to have an ordinance. And really we went, some areas went slower, I think because we went and the city went with it. But I've been protesting. I was the only one who had to pay a local tax, and I wanted it to go to a youth group. And so the tax rate was set again this year. It was supposed to be set before the end of the year, but that was moved out so I could bring experts to testify what a fair tax would be. That opportunity was never afforded to me. And I discovered that the chairman of the board is related to an old city employee that was the first licensee in the city that pays no tax and goes through no annual hearing. And so I believed that I'd worked Joey and Val into trying to get something on the agenda where we would dedicate it to a youth group at least. After you guys voted the way you voted, I called Joey, and Joey kind of just, said he didn't know why he voted the way he did. I called Darren the day after the vote, and Darren said honestly, he didn't like hearing what I'd have to say at these meetings a lot of the time. And so, it's the first time I'd ever, had like an actual, an admission that, I pay a tax based off of my criticism that, here, I think I'd called Darren out. He was waiting to be appointed and already elected. And, why don't you guys protest the golf simulator? Things like that where it comes right out of our general fund for questionable uses. And then you guys turn away free money, some LGBTQ grants and things like that. And I would criticize that, And it became very clear to me that, every year you guys would vote to set a tax that only I was subject to in the community, and it was a punitive tax. And I became aware we do have a cannabis committee, and as a former member of the cannabis workshop, I'd like to know about it, And as the owner of Sticky Grove, I'd like to know about the cannabis committee and why it wasn't an invoked, when we're starting to talk about the cannabis taxes. And so now that we're here and Dean Wilson has refused to put this on the agenda as per Supervisor Starkey, because you get to decide what's on the agenda. Your own attorney, I caught her outside and I said, shouldn't he recuse himself? And she shrieked the way you would do if you had to defend this. And she said, I advise all my clients to recuse themselves if there's even an appearance of a conflict of interest. And so, I do kind of object to
Thank
to
you.
the vote
Appreciate your time.
Dean for a chairman, because we need honest transparency.
Thank you, Rob.
Good morning. I just want to say with regards to the graffiti, just because I came from a rural area in Los Angeles, which there is, well, San Bernardino County, but they have them clean it up themselves. And because we don't want to take them out of school, we don't want to take them out of any of their extracurricular activities, so just have them clean it up. And the ones that maybe are artistic, maybe they could have a place. I haven't seen any of that. They're just scribbling on the walls, so yeah, have them clean it up. And then with regards to the medical, I forget the leader, I came from San Bernardino County, and what they were doing was they had nurse practitioners and physician's assistants in the office, and the actual doctor never even came into the office. He just signed off all of that, so that might be an idea or something. Or anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we're going to go and address consent agenda. Comments from members of the public may be heard at this time regarding matters on the consent agenda only. If you have any issues or concerns, please come up, and you have 3 minutes to address on the consent agenda. Any public comment on the consent agenda?
I see you have a couple items on here for the public defenders, and, I've just noticed there's a huge disparity with the funding of the public defender versus the district attorney. And I've noticed some of my friends and peers sometimes caught up in the system a little bit too late, and also I think we've got a couple people that ran for a judge, one that's about to be a judge. I don't really sure. So I would like to see the county fund an actual physical public defender's office. And, the city had to hire, well, they didn't have to. I think they decided it was more affordable to hire an attorney rather than contract out. And I think you might find that too with a public defender, then you get more value. I paid for Karen Olson to go check in on one of my customers that was charged with attempted murder, and he came in and bought a product the next day, and so the difference sometimes having an attorney really it was self-defense for him. And sometimes I've noticed a couple times people that really were, the charges end up being dropped a lot of the time anyways, but sometimes they sit in jail and lose their job and things like that. And I noticed a few times, from going back to even to ShopSmart, where I saw someone, get arrested defending their son, because there is, we do acknowledge the opportunity for self-defense. I've seen you guys talk about whether you get to carry a gun in Florence Keller, and sometimes when someone uses their fist, they've been wrapped up in this, against a mob sometimes, as is evidenced, by the release the next day of the person, I paid for a little bit of defense for. And so since you already have, these people involved in your public defender office, I think we need a physical office, and then we should always look at what do we got for DA versus public defending, and what we're funding here, because there's a huge disparity as it is right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for information, we are in the process from prior board action to hire a director, and we were in that, trying to go through that hiring process, but unfortunately we've had lack of people actually applying. So we're still in the process of trying to establish that office. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull item 15 if possible for a separate discussion.
Yep, we can pull item 15 for private discussion.
Good morning. Are we ready?
Oh,
Do
it's
that
up to
right?
the chair.
Can we do it right now?
No.
Let's take a motion first on, do we have a motion on the consent?
I would make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Absent 4?
Absent item number 15, and noting that we scratched number 4.
Second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Please poll vote.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. Now we can do.
Okay.
You want to do the
You
proclamation?
want to do the, okay.
It's up to you.
Well, yeah, we might as well. We have a lot of people in attendance, and so now that the consent agenda has passed, we will start with we have a couple of proclamations. The first will be presented by Supervisor Starkey for the Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Thank you. It's with great honor that I'm able to present this proclamation designating April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. I'm assuming that Christine Sleddy, the director of CASA of Del Norte, is present. If you'd like to come up, that would be great. I'll start reading it, Christine. Whereas the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors recognizes that every moment of a child's life is an opportunity to learn, and the quality of these experiences may determine whether a child succeeds in school or in life, and that all children need caring and loving adults in their lives. And whereas the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors acknowledges that our children are our greatest resource, and that our future will be determined by their innovative talents, ideas, and leadership. Whereas the role of our people is to accept the responsibility of ensuring that every child experiences an environment at home, at childcare, and at school that will promote the best possible development. And whereas all communities have the responsibility by offering parents the education, support, skills needed to provide healthy, safe, and nurturing homes for their children. Now therefore be it resolved that the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the month of April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and urges the community to support the efforts of the Del Norte Child Abuse Prevention Council, First Five of Del Norte Children and Families Commission, Del Norte County Child Care Council, CASA of Del Norte County Health and Human Services, licensed foster care homes, public and private agencies, and programs advocating for the children in Crescent City, and parents who already provide a safe, loving, and nurturing environment for their children free of any outside intervention. Passed and adopted this 26th day of March, 2024.
And if I may quickly, I just would like to thank the Board of Supervisors for attending the Crystal Ball on behalf of CASA. I'm the director of CASA. Valerie Starkey for all your work in co-chairing that, and Darren for being part of the planning and being on the CASA Board of Directors. Thank you for this proclamation. Child abuse prevention is so important to reduce adverse childhood experiences for our children, which impact our kids as well as our community. So thank you so very much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for all you do.
So our next proclamation is to all those beautiful people in red. So if you want to please come up to the podium as we read this proclamation. Supervisor Short will
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proclamation of the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors proclaiming March 24th as American Red Cross Month. Whereas during American Red Cross Month in March, we recognize the compassion of people in Del Norte County and reaffirm our commitment to care for one another in times of crisis. Whereas this generous spirit is woven into the fabric of our community and advances the humanitarian legacy of American Red Cross founder Clara Barton, one of the most honored women in our country's history, who nobly dedicated herself to alleviating suffering. Whereas today, kind-hearted individuals in our community exemplify Barton's commitment as they step up through the Red Cross in the California Gold Country region to provide a beacon of hope for our neighbors in need. Through their voluntary and selfless contributions, they make life-saving difference in people's darkest hours, whether it's delivering shelter, food, and comfort during disasters, providing critical blood donations for hospital patients, supporting military families, veterans, and caregivers through the unique challenges of service, saving lives with first aid, CPR, and other skills, or delivering aid and reconnecting loved ones separated by global crises. Whereas the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors hereby recognize the month of March in honor of all those who lead with their hearts to serve people in need, and we ask everyone to join in this commitment to strengthen our community. Now therefore be it resolved, the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors do hereby proclaim March 2024 as Red Cross Month and encourage all citizens of Del Norte County to reach out and support its humanitarian mission. Passed and adopted on this 26th day of March 2024.
And I just want to say, in all my years of services as the sheriff of Delaware County, you guys are amazing. You've been there every time we've needed you. Your volunteerism is a great testimony to the love that you held for this community. And I want to thank you from my own self, because it has been a pleasure and being able to call upon you and get that done. Thank you so much. Oh, photos.
Photobomb it.
Seals, I guess. Seals.
So my name is Kathy Williams, and I was involved quite heavily in the shelter. And I would like to thank our community partners, Health and Human Services, who provided many bodies and hands, which helped make our work much lighter. And also Del Norte Unified School District, who provided meals that really took a big load off of us so that we could concentrate on the clients in our care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
And I'm Marilyn Lincoln with the Red Cross here, and I'd just like to tell you just real briefly of what we do here in your community and our community to help prevent to have any kind of disasters or fires. We do preparedness. We do programs in the schools where we talk to communities and the people about go bags and being very prepared. Have what you need at home. Can you last 2 weeks without help? And helping your neighbors. We also have a disaster action team. We go out and when people have a house fire or something like that, we go out and we provide assistance to what we call clients, to the victims of the house fire, and we help them out financially. And then we also do what we call smoke alarm installations. In order to prevent the fire, we'll go out to the people's homes and we'll check their smoke alarms and we'll install new ones, or we'll talk about different disasters we have in the community. So the mission of the Red Cross is to prevent and alleviate human suffering wherever it may be found. So if we can prevent it and we can alleviate it, that's what we're here to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, you guys have been wonderful, and just watching you firsthand throughout the Smith River Complex was quite a treat to see how you handled, as volunteers, a real natural disaster happening in real time in our community. It was absolutely wonderful to see. I just wanted to make mention, and I know you guys will be there to participate, but on April 12th at the Cultural Center, this year, once again, in honoring the Kamome Festival, we'll be doing emergency preparedness around tsunami disaster. We'll probably have between 450 and 600 children from our school district attending and learning about natural disaster and how best to be prepared, and have those go bags that were just spoken about and ready to be utilized in case something ever happens here again. So really appreciate your time and efforts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Howard, you want to, your request to pull 15?
Yeah, and the reason I'm pulling this item, and if Director Kunstler could join us, is this our general plan that we receive a progress report on every year, I think is really important to us, especially in these times when we see important elements of that general plan, like housing, and the recent approval of our housing element becoming so critical. And the reason I wanted Director Kunstler here with us today on this is because our housing element in particular, and the work that we do through policy within this general plan, is critically important today, especially in light of recent announcements and the continued action by Attorney General Bonta to really police counties for not holding up the efforts associated with those housing elements. And I thought this would be a great opportunity for Director Kunstler to tell about the progress that we've made since implementing our housing element to really address those issues, and how we've really tried to address them community-wide, not only with what we're doing here, but also with what the city's doing, which I think is going to be a game changer here in the next year and a half for Del Norte County.
Yeah.
A couple of the things that we have done, which you're well aware of because they were items that had to be approved by the board. We had our ADU ordinance, which was approved in, I believe, November of last year. And then in December, we did an ordinance package that addressed a variety of different housing issues that looked at streamlined housing, objective design standards, farm worker housing, those types of considerations. We have a long list of other items that we still need to get to, which is reported in the document that is before you today. If you had a chance to look at Table D, that goes through all of the implementation programs that were adopted as part of the housing element. I believe there's 35 or 36. Each one has multiple objectives. Some of them are ongoing, some of them require general plan amendment, rezones, et cetera. They all have timeframes associated with them, so we're trying to actively work our way through all of those. We made our way, as far as deadline-wise, through the majority of them that had to be done by today. But as Supervisor Howard mentioned, there is this housing accountability unit at the California Department of Housing and Community Development, and they have 40 staff that are just assigned to tracking what we're doing to make sure that we're complying with our housing elements. But as he mentioned, or Supervisor Howard mentioned some of the great work that the city is doing. They have a number of housing projects that are going to be completed within the next 3 years, which are going to contribute significantly to our local housing stock, which helps all of us, and that's great that they're doing that. Supervisor Starkey brought a lot of those details to my attention. We have some things also going on in the county. We have duplex projects located behind Walmart. We have the potential for some single-family development out in the Smith River area that we're hopeful for. We've uploaded a lot of really helpful information to our website just over the past couple of weeks that hopefully will be used by developers who are interested in doing housing projects here in Del Norte County. We have our planning staff and myself who are available pretty much every day if folks have questions. And then also one of the items that was discussed earlier, the SB 951, pieces like that, legislation that may end up helping us with the coastal development will also be very helpful. But if you had a chance to look at Table B, for the period of our housing element, which is 2022 to 2030, the regional housing need allocation actually began in 2018. So at this point, we're actually doing quite well for the number of units. And what's really nice is we can also work with our tribal partners who are also doing affordable housing projects to bring their projects into our housing element as we all live here together. So, but I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
One of the other things I want to bring forward is we have been and are doing is finding distressed areas, properties, lots within communities, and we are having private partnerships where they're doing reclamation basically on those properties and then turning them over and selling them. And so the ability to get needed building space, lots within communities and districts, and also eliminate some of these abandoned properties that have gone into distress and are a risk because of their condition that they're in. This is something that we have been engaged in and hopefully can engage more in, because there's so many of these lots, especially in the track, where if they are turned around and made available, that it would give an opportunity for building in those communities and helping to revitalize some of those areas that have fallen into distress. Thank you.
No, thank you for bringing that up. That's an excellent tool that your board, county council's office, and our code enforcement, it's really exciting. I think it's going to be very helpful for us to bring a lot of homes back into our housing stock that will hopefully be affordable.
Thank you for the board's patience on this item. I just wanted the community to be familiar with a lot of the activities that are going on today within that element.
I just want to say that the city has 303 doors that they are building within the next couple years. So, units, you call them units or whatnot, but that's exciting. And coupled with what we're doing on the county level, we're really addressing our housing shortage head-on. The ADUs, I just want to bring this up, is one of the ideas that we tossed around, we met, and is to get some set plans or plan sets, and to see if we could, that would take a lot of time off. If somebody wanted to build an ADU or a junior ADU, to have set plans that they could choose from, that saves them time and money on the front end. So I would love to see that going. I'm not telling you to do it, but it's just one of those ideas that it just seems to make sense to me. That if somebody wants to build an ADU on their property, to come in and say, here's 4 plans that have already been approved, you could choose from one of these, and it saves you that time on the front end as well as the money. So.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the annual progress report for the general plan.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. Can we pull the vote, please? Oh, any public comment? Any
public
public comment on number 15, please? See no public comment? Please pull the vote.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. That brings us to our regular general government items. Number 18 is approve the designation of Supervisor Howard to the county's 2024 representative for the National Association of Counties as requested by Supervisor Howard, and approve members of the board to travel to the NACO Western Region Conference scheduled on May 8th to the 10th in Mariposa County as recommended by Supervisor Gore from Sonoma County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In having a lot of discussions with Supervisor Gore from Sonoma County recently at our CSAC meeting, Supervisor Gore pleaded with the involvement of every California county to get engaged in NACO. There's never been a better time at the present for us to be involved as county leaders in moving Western region issues forward. That's why we have these 2 agenda items on here today. The Western region in particular, as you're aware, as we voted on last year, is really trying to address 2 big key pieces that affect our general fund budget. One is the payment in lieu of taxes, abbreviated as PILT. The other one is secure rural schools and roads. 2 pieces that generally fluctuate annually, but are under constant attack. These are under attack because although we don't harvest fiber any longer out of our national forests in many areas, these areas are going up in smoke. And as you've heard me preach on this dais many times, this is an absolute outrage. There's a way we could be generating dollars out of our forests and our public lands and prevent an incredible amount of carbon from going up in the atmosphere every year. But it makes us as a county in particular and our general fund so reliant upon things like PILT, things like secure rural schools and roads, to just support our general fund. I mean, PILT was most recently authorized again on March 9th, but SRS is still hanging out there and waiting for some legislative approval by Congress. We need to be at the table advocating for these things. My hope is with what we passed last year, which is support for a buy-in to a nonprofit that will help advocate for this on a yearly basis, gain some strong traction here again at the Western Region Conference. And I'd love the board to take on Supervisor Gore's invitation to this event. It's the first time it's been in California in quite some period, and Supervisor Gore would love us to be engaged. NACO has a number of committees that I think there's a lot of folks that sit on this board could be quite good at, and in particular Supervisor Starkey. I hope she gets involved in some of those issues around the middle mile type actions, telecommunication, which is a huge issue for NACO right now, and finding the federal funding necessary to close those gaps. But this is one way for us to finally get engaged in moving some policy levels important to rural California forward. And that's why I placed it on the agenda today.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to make the pitch that I be the one that is designated for the representative for NACO. I believe that currently we have Supervisor Howard is appointed to CSAC, Supervisor Short is appointed to RCRC. I think that in order to share the workload, we need to have an equity on the board. At any time, any one of us should be able to advocate for any of these issues that are affecting our county. And we do that by getting involved, by making ourselves available, by going to these programs and educating ourselves, and then bringing that information back to the entire board. I understand Supervisor Howard is intimately involved with some of these, but this should be something that any one of us should be able to pick up. And given the fact that 2 supervisors are already assigned to a state level and a rural level, I would like to be appointed to the national level for the reasons that I stated.
Thank you. It is one of those critical issues, and it is a great opportunity for us to move forward, especially that the meeting is going to be here in California, to be able to go and address these issues. And so I'm very supportive of both the appointment for Supervisor Howard, but also for the invitation to go out to any member of the board that wants to attend NACO and be present in these committees, to let your voice be heard and to begin participation, reaching out to see the value that NACO may be able to serve for Del Norte County. I know that the long-standing relationship that Supervisor Howard has with Sonoma Supervisor Gore, who is ascending up to the presidency for NACO, will be very beneficial not only to that organization, but also to Del Norte County, to have that relationship being represented, because the one thing I have learned over the years is that the one major important thing is relationships when it comes to trying to get your issues in front of and heard by your government and your organizations, and relationships are paramount, that they exist. If you don't have those relationships, it's hard to get your issues in front of people to be heard. And so that is the majority of my decision as far as who represents us at this point in time. Now, with that, I know one of the issues, again, we just had this huge fire that went through and decimated our area. And, those issues with the federal government on how that timber is going to be handled right now. They quick sailed, they were in the process of those lots that were already up for sale. They expedited the sale of those lots. But the remaining timber is a critical issue, because those areas that have been decimated by fire, the viable marketable timber that is there, that means a huge tax to us in Del Norte County, is very limited amount of time before the pests and other disease will hit those marketable woods. And so it is paramount that we push forward the issue that those viable resources that are up there, that they be not only sold but harvested within a short period of time, so that Del Norte County will have the benefit, but also we don't have the additional fuel remaining up in those areas that will be not only attract pests, but will be cause for further damage. Because I know from talking with other counties, one of the big issues that we will face is not this year, next year, but the third year, when the root systems of the trees that have been damaged finally began to be non-viable in the ground, and they no longer can hold or retain soils back, because they've basically lost any continuity and coherence. And so you see more slides, more degradation of the environment, and it's critical not only to our 199 corridor, but also to our streams and our rivers. So thank you for bringing it forward. Any other comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I am very much in favor of somebody from this board being engaged at the national level, and also in favor of Supervisor Starkey being that person. She handily, the voters handily gave her the next 4 years, and I believe she'll do it again for her final term. I think she would represent us well, and in response to your statements about relationships, yeah, those are critical. Those are very much critical. I agree with that. But I think Supervisor Howard is going to maintain those in the position he's in and even further them, as he has done for the county during his terms. And I believe that Supervisor Starkey would create those relationships and do us a good job as well. So I would make that motion that we designate Supervisor Starkey and also approve members of the board to travel to WIR in May.
So I would like to just ask Supervisor Howard, I mean, this kind of brought it up, his baby, you know, I mean, that's a big offer. What are your thoughts? I mean, is this too much travel onto all the other trips you're taking, or what's your feelings on the request?
Yeah, specific to,
Having Supervisor Starkey take your position on this, or does this?
no, I think Supervisor Wilson addressed it quite well. It's about taking advantage at this time with relationships that are coming on board with NACO. With Supervisor Gore stepping in as president of NACO and Supervisor John Peters of Mono County, who I've served with for 9 years now, stepping in as second vice president, we have a unique opportunity at these times. It's ensuring that some of those relationships play out well for Del Norte County on issues that affect not only rural California, but most of the western interstate region. So having our issues front and center at a national level, the one I brought up obviously is PILT and SRS because it has such a massive impact on our general fund. I think those things play out well, and I've served the board for a little over 9 years now, and I feel I could do a great job serving the board for another 3 if the community will have me. But I don't doubt, as Supervisor Short said, that Supervisor Starkey would do a good job at this. It's not and or. I've just spent a lot of time developing these relationships, and sometimes that's what it comes down to.
Okay. And with that, you know, a lot of this PILT and the SRS funding is in your district as well, and mine. But as far as going to battle for this, I do fully support you being the designation. I'd also support Supervisor Starkey, but you do have all the connections, and so I will make the motion to approve Supervisor Howard going forward.
Okay. Couple things. At any time, any one of us should be able to go and argue, not contingent upon our district. And case in point is the fishing industry. You know, that's in Supervisor Short's district. So if we were to put all our eggs in that basket and like, well, it's in your district, you have to handle it, I don't necessarily think that's an argument. With regard to relationships, I just want to remind this board and the community that I spent 30 years in Sonoma County. I'm well aware, and I'm very familiar with Supervisor Gore. I'm very familiar with a lot of those players down in there. Are we besties? No. Do we talk on the phone? No. But can I? I've proven that I'm capable of bringing people together and having discussions. So there's 2 motions on the table with no seconds, so I'm going to make the third. I'm going to offer that we appoint Valerie Starkey to the NACO representative, but allow Supervisor Howard to travel to the WIR conference and have that representation of him at that conference. But as far as the overall NACO representative, I'd like it to be me, Valerie Starkey.
I'd second Supervisor Borges' motion.
Okay.
Just as a clarification,
The third motion needs to be taken up first,
that's, yeah.
and then the second if it doesn't pass, and then we go to the first if it doesn't pass.
Right. The board item is, the number 2 part is approve members of the board to travel.
Yes.
I was assuming that any and all who wanted to go
That is
would
the
be
motion, right?
That
would
is
be authorizing.
That is the intent of that.
That was my, that was my motion. So any and all would be a great representation for
Therefore, I
us to
withdraw
be
my
there.
motion because that doesn't seem to make any sense. So we just have the 2,
Okay.
and I will second Darren Short's motion.
Seeing two motions, take it for second first. Motion to... Oh, public comment, sorry. Any public comment on this issue? Any public comment on this issue? Get on the record.
Just from the perspective of business management, you have to do legacy planning, and I believe Supervisor Howard's district term is going to be up pretty soon. And so, that's when I would run sandwich shops. That was often the dysfunction was, that nobody had planned who was replacing who. In fact, we made it a rule that if you wanted a written recommendation, you had to have a trained replacement for yourself. And so I think Starkey's second option was kind of cool because, legacy planning, you know what I mean? It took the city's been working on a siding ordinance for, I think it went to the Planning Commission a couple of years ago. It seems like government's pretty slow a lot of the time, and so I would do legacy planning, where you try to figure out where the county's going to be without you, because your term is going to be up pretty soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Addressing the issue of the motion on sending Supervisor Howard, and then other members are welcome to attend NACO. Do I poll the vote?
I don't believe Chris, did you?
Seconded.
You seconded. Okay, sorry. It got a little confusing there for a second.
Yes.
So we're taking up, technically, the second motion would be appointing Supervisor Starkey because the way the items worded is appointing Supervisor Howard.
Yes.
So the second motion we're going to be taking up first is Supervisor Starkey.
Okay.
I made the motion second, right?
Yeah.
I don't believe that's correct. I made the first motion, even though it doesn't align with the, agenda item.
Council, could you clarify?
Edward, can you please clarify? I've been wanting to say that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Edwin, I'm throwing a stick in the spokes here.
I believe the board's already discussed it. The second motion, I believe it's taken up first. And the second motion was Supervisor Borges making the motion as the agenda item is presented. The first motion was Supervisor Short making a motion for Supervisor Starkey.
Okay, we'll go with that. We're good.
Sorry, Kylie.
That's fine. Okay, so this is the one appointing Supervisor Howard. We have a motion and a second. So Supervisor Short.
No.
Supervisor Starkey.
No.
Supervisor Howard.
Yes.
Supervisor Borges.
Yes.
Chair Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you for the board support. Appreciate the discussion.
And thank you for bringing this to the board. I think our involvement in NACO is going to be very valuable. I appreciate that, Supervisor Howard.
Number 19 is approve and adopt resolution adopting the County of Del Norte 2024 pension management policy as requested by the Proactive Financial Management Technical Advisory Committee.
Move to approve.
Second.
Oh, that was quick. Any public comment on number 19? No public comment. Any comment from the board? I'm going to comment because this is exciting for me. This is exactly what has been needed to be done for a long period of time. I want to both thank the committee and the staff for putting this together, bringing it forward. One of the biggest issues dealing with county, city government is unfunded pensions and unfunded liabilities. And this policy is designed to address just those issues. Unfunded liability is critical to our community. It's critical to our organizational structure. It's critical to our promise that we make to our employees that they will have a pension plan and that pension plan will be there for them in their years. And without this policy in place and without clear direction, it is impossible for that to be done in an adequate way. And too many counties, too many states, too many other are underwater in their unfunded liabilities and in their pension plans. And so without something to bring forward and address and have, it is absolutely fiscally irresponsible not to do this and not have this in place. and I want to applaud both the boards and the staff for bringing this forward, and this is a great step to making sure that we are addressing these issues going forward. Poll the vote, please.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. Number 20 is approve and adopt an amendment to the elected department head group resolution, which pertains to the county sheriff coroner, as requested by the county administrative officer, and we are requesting that this be done to the as the alternative recommendation, correct?
That is an option of the board, yes. Initially, the wage adjustments that were discussed for the sheriff and the undersheriff fell in line with the miscellaneous group, but they are, however, sworn officers and typically do get the same adjustments as the sworn employees for the Sheriff's Employees Association. And so the items 20 and 21 are on the agenda today after the board took action on the 12th to approve the successor MOU for Delaware County Sheriff's Employees Association. And even though the sheriff and undersheriff are underrepresented, these employees do have Me Too language in their resolutions. And so my recommendation is the alternative option and the same increases as the sworn officers.
Any public comment?
I was going to say so moved because it was so brilliantly stated, but
Any public comment on this issue? Seeing none, bring it back to the board for a motion.
We have a motion, we don't have a second.
I'll second that.
You have a motion and a second, please pull the vote.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. 21 is basically a ditto for the undersheriff. This basically carries forward the same resolution. And so any public comment on 21? Seeing none, bring it back to the board for
A
motion.
motion to approve.
I will second.
Okay, Reese. Pull the vote, please.
Chair,
Yes.
just real quick, I want to make sure that the motion is the alternative.
Yes, the
Yeah,
alternative.
Just to make sure.
Yes, it is the alternative wording.
Motion? Second?
Second.
All right, pull the vote, please.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. So now we will adjourn as the Board of Supervisors, reconvene as the Board of Equalization to approve and authorize the chair to sign a stipulation agreement, AAA 2022-009, with Kimberly and Mark Pasano.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we grant that authorization.
You have a motion, a second?
I will second.
I had some questions for our folks in the assessor's office as it relates to this one. Not that I'm disagreeing with you guys, I just like to ask a couple questions. Just the limited information we had to consider this, unfortunately, there wasn't any additional supporting documents in this appeal, but the applicant for this appeal mentioned extensive barriers to parcel development and comparable sales valuations in the areas. That is why he valued the property at $12,500 versus the $22,500 the county has valued it at. What are those? I'm just curious. What are those barriers? I'm having trouble with my crystal ball.
Yeah, so it's in the landing air zone, like zoning for the landing field for the airport. It's right off of, what is that, Riverside?
Riverside.
And it's in an area that's really hard to develop. And there used to be a home there prior to them purchasing this. And so when the appraiser valued the property, they valued it as if a home's going to be built there again, to not take into consideration that issue with the landing zoning there. And that's where the 22.5 came from originally. And then after the applicant filed the appeal, that was looked into further and then discovered, and then we pulled further comps and then it supported essentially their purchase price of the 12.5.
Okay.
So we just went back, used their purchase price, comp supported it after the new information.
Appreciate that.
Available. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this matter? Seeing none, We have a motion and a second. So poll the vote, please.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. This brings us to budget transfers. We will adjourn as the Board of Equalization and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. Number 23 is move and approve to adopt transfer 00302 to the amount of $3,660 from the Office of Emergency Services budget and adds to the Homeland Security Grant Program funding that has been extended through May 2024 as requested by the County Administrative Officer and the OAS Fiscal Manager. Also approve and adopt transfers 0303 in the amount of $57,000 with a CYA budget 101-249 to allow the transfer from the juvenile hall budget to cover costs for the house to house a minor for the rest of the fiscal year as a request by the Chief Probation Officer. Also, we have to, number 25, move and approve and adopt transfer 0304 to the amount of $57,000 within juvenile hall budget. Again, this is about the transfer of the money for the minor remaining in fiscal year requested by the Chief Probation Officer. 26, approve and adopt transfer 0305 to the amount of $42,818 with the Office of Emergency Services budget to reflect a refund received as requested by the County Administrative Officer and the OAS Fiscal Manager. 27, adopt and approve and adopt transfer number 0306 to the amount of $42,455. Transfer salary savings from the Peace Officers Training Line to offset the cost of sending 3 recruits to Siskiyou Police Academy as requested by the Sheriff's Office. Approve and adopt budget transfer 0307 to the amount of $6,037 with the Pacific Shores Settlement refund, fund balance budget for the purchase and replacement of standby generator. Authorize the replacement standby generator added to the solar power system fixed asset as requested by the Director of Community Development. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve budget transfers 0302 through 0307.
Any public comment on any of these budget transfers? Seeing no public comment, bring it back to the board. We have a motion.
I'll make a second.
A second. Please poll the vote.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. We have legislative and budget issues. Consider miscellaneous legislative and budget matters pertaining to the County of Del Norte. Authorize the chair to sign and send appropriate letters of respect to the matters pending before the state and federal governments. Number 29, review copies of letters provided by the state legislatures for the Director of Health and Human Services per section 1.60 for the administrative manual as requested by the Director of Health and Human Services. Renell, would you like to say something?
Hi, Board. Thank you for the opportunity. As you are aware, I've tried to be more present in legislative advocacy efforts this year. That has included some in-person meetings with legislators, with our advocacy groups, really focusing on talking points. Also, those groups have asked us as a department, or me as a department head, for the Department of Health and Human Services to submit either letters of support of opposition specifically to usually budget funding issues. Right now, in regards to these 3 letters were sent for the CalWorks funding cuts that are being proposed. Most of them are in our housing support programs, which is really going to have a huge impact for us. So in those letters, we were able to tie in some personal stories for Del Norte County to see how that would be effective. Also, requesting for the budget to have some bridge funding for the IHSS program administration. Currently, there isn't funding to do that work. So we're requesting for that, and then also a letter in regards to the Cal Connect program. So during COVID, most public health departments were all utilizing their own Excel spreadsheets to track data, and through the pandemic, the state administered and created this program and got everybody connected through that, and then now they're wanting to take the funding away for that program, which would kind of put us back to using Excel spreadsheets. And so those were the 3 letters that were submitted. And then we're working on a few more that I'll bring back at another board meeting. So, questions, comments?
Questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, Renell, I just wanted to say thanks for your time being on the road and advocating at the state level, especially with the legislators, and expressing some of the massive concerns that we in Del Norte have with potentially rollbacks on a lot of our programs. I see a lot of the programs, in particular some that you've talked about today, being extremely important intermediate steps as we begin to transition populations off the streets and into housing and back to being people that feel valued in our society here in Del Norte County. Without those programs, I feel that there's going to be a gap for Del Norte County to really make an effective difference at getting those people successfully off the streets and back engaged in a workable public environment. So I just wanted to express my thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good. Do we have a, is it?
I was wondering what the action item is here.
Yeah.
Just reviewed them and.
No, I don't think
there's
any
no
action. Any
No
action?
action, just, I believe, bring them to the board if we submit them.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for now.
We'll bring up item number 30 as approve and authorize the chair to sign a letter that we sent to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife expressing a position that recreational salmon fishing season should be provided with measures taken to protect the fishery as requested by Supervisor Howard.
So as the board's aware, we got crushed last year with multiple closures, not only our ocean and in-river recreational salmon season, but also our groundfish season, which we spoke about earlier. But the salmon opportunity is once again in front of us to have a season. The Tolowadini Nation have sent letters to the California Fish and Game Commission and also to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, really requesting a fishery for Chinook salmon in river. And the grounds for that letter, as you probably read in your agenda, are in particular that we have a hatchery here. And yet if the hatchery fish, which are supposed to be retained and kept, aren't fished for, then it's pointless to have a hatchery here. And so with the huge returns that we have this year, some of the largest on record since we started doing the Ditson recording, which is a sonar device that we stretch across the river down there at the Saxon's boat ramp, we've been able to gather incredibly important data, not only about the Chinook runs, but also the steelhead runs. And this year was particularly strong. The Smith River, the Mad River, and the Eel River, unlike other rivers in the state of California, aren't managed by the Pacific Marine Fisheries Management Council. These waters are specifically regulated by the state of California and the Fish and Game Commission. So this letter urges action by the Fish and Game Commission and by the department to have an in-river season this year, so we could actually have a fall tourist season.
Move to approve.
And an enthusiastic second to that motion. Thank you, Supervisor Howard, for bringing this to us.
We have a motion and a second. It's also one of those issues that, again, you know, we have little or no documentation on the fact that for years we had both the Rowdy Creek Fish Hatchery and we also had the fish hatchery down by Prairie Creek. And both of those were very active and produced fingerlings and salmon to be put into our resources here locally. And it is egregious that with all of the controls that they have been closing more of these fish hatcheries for decades, and then they do not record the impacts that has had on the salmon runs that we've had since their closures. And so yeah, I enthusiastically support this letter going forward and promoting a return of having a salmon season. Poll the vote. Public comment, sorry. Any public comment? I keep missing that part. The most important part. No public comment? Poll the vote, please.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. That brings us to 31, is approve and authorize the chair to sign a letter for the board opposing AB 2561 as requested by Supervisor Howard.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you today is a letter that we hope to sway some of the Assembly Bill pieces of 2561. This seems like an absolute overreach from the incredible efforts that rural counties in particular are struggling with right now, just to find staff to fill our vacancies. In particular, adding additional workload at this time to track that, which this is Bill's intent, seemed to be just a real kick in kick in the face. And I thought the county should express our concerns with the way that the legislation's written and really see what we could do to get this thing rolled back. But that's my opinion that's on the table. I wanted to share it with the board to see if they had similar views.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, Supervisor Howard, I couldn't agree with you more. I can't fathom where McKinnon is coming from, waving the magic wand of this bill over all the counties in the state, like that's going to change the struggle that we're having with hiring people. So absolutely support sending this letter per your request. So I would make the motion that we approve and authorize the chair to sign.
I'll second that motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any public comment?
Good morning. Norma Williams, Chapter President, Delaware County Employees Association, SEIU 1021. Officially, we do not have an official position on this piece of legislation. I did bring it to the attention of our local, however, to ascertain what they at the local level feel about it. I just read it myself thoroughly. This is information that the union would always request. Actually, we did make a request late last year on the vacancy rates here for the county of Del Norte, and we did receive that report on December 14th of 2023. This morning, I did submit another request to the county CAO, also requesting a similar report. Basically also in anticipation of the 120-day report that the union always receives, as well as for our bargaining unit, because we keep track of the employee rates of those who are in our bargaining unit. We keep track of who's actually, of those numbers. And our concern was the steady decrease that we were seeing as of last year. So we did also, again, as I had made note of, at least in one or two prior board meetings, that I would be requesting that, and actually we did officially request that this morning. Much of what is in here obviously is something that would be subject to a meet and confer and or meet and discuss with the union or any other recognized labor organization anyway, between the labor organization and the public sector employer, because again, vacancy rates does have an impact on working conditions that is covered under MMBA 3500. That may be a stretch in some people's minds, but not in the union's mind. Because obviously what is being asked of is, and what we're already experiencing, is recognized burnout and other difficult working conditions that employees are undergoing and have been for quite some time, given the vacancy rates. I actually know what the vacancy rate was as of November of last year. Would be interesting to see what it would be now. And I'm also aware of the fact that even today I was told that we're still going to be losing 2 more employees that I'm aware of in Health and Human Services. So that only goes to show you that that vacancy rate is going to continue to go up. I think, again, I have to agree, I'm kind of wondering why this is happening. If it's to strengthen MMBA 3500 as to what the obligation is between the public employer and the unions, then I can understand that. Still, any information regarding this should be made between the union and the county, should be discussed between the union and the county, either in official bargaining or in a labor management conference. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I would just add one very, very minor question, and I don't know the answer to this. In this letter and on the next agenda item, in our CCs, we have Senator Mike McGuire. I'm wondering if the title is correct, or we should correct that to say Senate President Pro Tem rather than just member of the Senate.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was glaring to me. He's not just a member of the California State Senate. He is the President Pro Tem.
I was wondering if that would be more proper to have that changed. I think it should be changed.
And I also do.
But I truly don't know procedurally or what the using proper manners would be.
It would seem appropriate to address him as he is titled currently.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah.
Supervisor Short, do you want to rescind your motion to reflect that?
I would, yes, I would like to do that. Thank you, Kylie.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. And last but not least, 32 is approve and authorize the chair to sign a letter to the board supporting and amending SB 1092 as requested by Chair Wilson. This was, again, an area brought up forward to me by our staff. And looking at this amendment or this proposed legislative issue that is going before the state, it is specifically designed to allow the county and city of San Francisco to bypass some of the Coastal Act's requirements in order to facilitate building housing. The proposal is would benefit us locally if it was adopted to not just be the urban areas but also rural areas, as we also have issues being able to build in our coastal area because it's extensive, far beyond where it should be. But in order to meet that act, there's mitigation and other issues that make it very difficult for us to build. And so this request that we have, letter that we're putting in, requests that they amend the bill to extend out to communities such as ours. And so that is what we're seeking. And so far we've got some positive return. But again, whether this even goes beyond just the initial request by San Francisco is questionable. So. But we wanted to put forward our position on this. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd make the motion to approve in addition with the amendment to the letter to title Senator McGuire's title properly. I really appreciate this. This is very much in line with SB 951 and some of the changes and amendments that we were seeking from Senator Wiener. Appreciate you bringing this to our attention. We'll continue to bird dog this both at CSAC and RCRC.
Certainly, and I would second that motion. And I have a feeling that our wonderful Heidi Kunstler might have had a hand in writing this letter.
I have a motion and a second. Any public comment on this? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. Please pull the vote.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Wilson?
Yes. And also kind of in the same vein, I'm in preliminary discussions with staff on, I believe that counties such as ours, where we have a high propensity of our land, which is locked up by both national and state parks, that issues such as mitigation bring forth by the Coastal Act, that it does not take into recognition of the fact that when your counties or your community is so invested in preservation of these parks and of this land, and yet they ask for additional mitigation when you go to put a project within certain areas of the coastal zone. And those mitigations can be sometimes multiples of what you are actually taking, and without any recognition of the fact that most of your community is unbuildable. And so I'm looking towards maybe seeking a legislative fix that will not only recognize counties that have such high propensity of their land that's already locked up and cannot be utilized, but also that our actions such as salmon restoration projects that we do, bridges that we put in, coastal acts that whether it's building culverts for better drainage and other things to mitigate, whether it's the noxious weed elimination, all of those projects should give our community credit towards any further additional mitigation. And so hopefully we'll have the appetite for seeking out and pushing forward some kind of legislative amendment that'll find someone to carry that forward for us. But I think it is well overdue, because as the years go by, mitigation becomes much more difficult for us to find land to set aside in order to do something positive, whether it's adding a bridge, whether it's putting forward a building project or housing project, or whether it's trying to find a seat for our homeless shelters. Many of our best choices were not considered because they were in the coastal. And so as our land becomes less and less available, these kinds of solutions to what the state is mandating, what coastal is mandating, mitigation, I believe, we should look towards alternative fixes that we could credit ourselves for having so much of our land already tied up and non-usable because it is state, national, or federal lands. Thank you.
Yeah, Chairman, the risk of extending the meeting any longer, I could not agree with you more. I'll give the public one example of exactly what you're talking about with important infrastructure projects here. If you recall, our airport terminal was one of those areas that was held up for quite some period of time with this robust debate, discussion about mitigation for that terminal. What was eventually settled upon was a 7-to-1 ratio of mitigation for the disturbance of those lands, and us having to seek areas outside the airport terminal for that mitigation, which we eventually found some private lands out there in the Lake Earl Wildlife area that were private to mitigate with. But those kind of things absolutely should not happen.
It's extortion.
It was well stated, and I look forward to working with you as soon as you find somebody to help author a bill.
Yeah. With that, we are closed. Thank you for your attendance and